It's the John Phillips Show. Johnny's back on Monday. It's Randy Wang here, and the phone number to join us is 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Your email is at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, and search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. Now, I should mention, even though John Phillips is not here today, part of the reason he isn't here is because today is Johnny's birthday. It's the holy month of January, everyone. And since it is Johnny's birthday, I've got a very special birthday singer.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Valen. Happy birthday to you.
And by the way, this office, the radio station that we broadcast from in Culver City in Southern California, they are so addicted to cake that even though Johnny's birthday's today and he's not here, the next time he's in this building, even if it's a month from now, you know they're going to bring cake to celebrate his birthday. Not because they want him to celebrate, but because it's any excuse for cake. Now, we try to do our best to highlight some of the great journalists that are in California, because we've got some really great ones. Ashley Zavala on KCRA3. Julie Watts of CBS Sacramento. Yesterday, we talked to Marla Tejas of Fox 11. And by the way, she got us in touch with Matthew Seedorf from Fox 11, and he's going to be on the show tomorrow. But another one that we love to highlight is on ABC7 in the Bay Area, and that is they're building a better Bay Area reporter, Leanne Melendez. And anytime she has a story, I get excited for a few reasons. One, usually it's like a 6 or 7 minute piece, so that fills a whole A block. But also, she really gets some very interesting stories. The best story I think she ever did since we've been paying attention to the Building a Better Bay Area reports was last March when she did a 7-minute investigative piece as to why the patrons of Portsmouth Square in Chinatown don't use the bathrooms, they just pee outside. That might be one of the greatest pieces that we've ever done on this show. Well, she's back, Leanne Melendez, with a story about fire prevention and an ordinance that is now being enforced in Berkely. That ordinance, in order to defend your home against wildfires, says you can't have anything living or wooden within 5 feet of your house. The problem is, it is quite debated whether the science behind this actually would defend your home. So let's get into it. Here is ABC7 in the Bay Area and the great Leanne Melendez.
A new fire prevention ordinance is forcing Berkeley Hills neighbors into a tense standoff, requiring that nothing living remain within 5 feet of their homes.
And in the lush Berkeley Hills, that's not just inconvenient, it is a dramatic overhaul and quite a challenge. ABC7 News Building a Better Bay Area reporter Leanne Melendez is here with why the pushback is growing, because when you think about it, your 5 feet doesn't sound like much, but you have to remove all of that around.
And what if you have trees? What if you have fruit trees? What, you're supposed to not have oranges anymore?
And it could be expensive, absolutely. But, you know, the city wants to make it very clear this is not about cutting down trees in the Berkeley Hills. It's about maintaining that safe distance. Now, one side said
maintaining a safe distance just triggers something in me. It triggers in me the good old days of Babs Ferrer.
Next slide.
Keep a safe distance from everybody.
Yeah.
But yes, you need to keep a safe distance around your home from anything that could possibly be flammable, even if you live in the hills.
One side says it's about common sense, given that there is a real fire risk in those hills. Those who oppose the Ember ordinance say being fire resilient should not mean cutting back vegetation. Even top scientists.
Wait, are you allowed? So you can't have anything? Can you have any plants? You have a garden? This is going to disrupt a lot of lives. And if it truly can prevent wildfires, maybe But we don't even know if that's true. I mean, prevent wildfires. We're talking about preventing the spread to other homes. Because what? You've got like a line of salt around your house?
Even top scientists are divided on this issue.
Those white picket fences are most often associated with the American dream. Add an old hardy tree and life seems, well, complete. But now the Berkely Hills area is undergoing a transformation of sorts because of the potential threat of a wildfire starting in nearby Tilden Park.
If there's a wildfire in the park and millions of small burning pieces of material fly and start landing on rooftops and next to homes here in Berkely.
Well, if it lands on a rooftop, then it had nothing to do with the fence or the tree. And by the way, there are things we can do to make sure our roofs are more resilient.
And next to homes here in Berkely, how do we protect the homes so that the embers don't ignite those homes?
Council member Brent Blackaby says...
Blackaby, by the way, you can just tell. Look, I have a sixth sense for this. He is trying really hard to sound emotional.
How do we protect the homes so that the embers don't ignite those homes?
He's trying so hard to sound like he really cares. And he might. It just comes off as very inauthentic.
Council member Brent Blackaby says the answer is simple. Create a 5-foot barrier around homes where nothing ignitable is allowed.
And by the way, these kinds of rules and regulations are only going to accelerate the insurance industry dropping people left and right.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Because we saw what happened when Ricardo Lara made deals with the insurance companies that changed how close you can be to certain kinds of brush in places like South Orange County. And when it went from 1,000 feet to 500 feet, when it went from 500 feet to 1,000 feet, a whole bunch of people got dropped from their policies.
This, as expected, has ignited criticism.
It's personal. It's my yard.
When you venture around the Berkely Hills, the word lush comes to mind. And for some, having to re-landscape around their home is unreasonable.
Also, this is going to happen at the homeowner's cost, I would assume. The state's not ponying up for this.
So you remove plants. What's going in their place? You now got a problem. As you can see, we're up in the hills. They're steep. There's potential runoff problems when you remove plants. You lose the soil structure.
We're not going to have fires, but we are going to have mudslides.
Others have a different way of approaching it.
Close to the house, we're planning on putting large stones that would keep the growth away from the house.
In addition, they traded in their wooden fence for a metal one at a significant cost. Under Berkeley's new Ember Ordinance that went into effect on January 1st, no wooden structures may touch or come within 5 feet of a home. Almost immediately, contractors started to advertise. The city of Berkeley is helping a few of those households and seniors pay for some of the landscaping costs.
Hey, you've got to get rid of all this stuff. You got to hire us. We'll cut down your trees. We'll cut them real good.
Let's take a closer look at what that 5-foot barrier looks like.
Is that 5 feet away?
Yeah, it is here.
Okay.
Yeah, it is here. And then as you get closer, we need to do a little more refinement. We've started that process.
You can just imagine city inspectors out there with the measuring tape. No. That's less than 5 feet.
And this one right here?
This one too, again, we've taken some of these branches out. We're sort of directing the growth this way. We'll do a little more kind of pruning over here.
What about that bush right there? That's against right there.
Yeah, bushes against the deck. Yeah, we have to remove those. We've started removing some in the backyard.
No bushes, no plants. Boy, there are some people that have spent years and years and years figuring out their landscaping, and now it's all got to change overnight. And again, if this truly would help, that's one thing. But even that is debated.
So that one's going to go?
Yep.
For the past year, the fire department has started inspecting homes with the purpose of helping homeowners understand the ordinance.
I think Ember's a great idea because we need to do everything that we can to protect our homes and the whole area. And to me, it doesn't ruin our surrounding yards. It's just sort of a protection.
Jane Turjung says that's debatable.
There are studies on the other side, so to speak, because it's turned into a fight,
Well, what doesn't in 2026?
That show that the moisture in plants often save a home, that some of them screen the embers.
Let's stop right there.
Wait, hold on a second. So the plants that we're getting rid of could actually be helping to slow down the spread of a fire? I mean, we're not talking about dry brush that has been ignored by the state or the federal government or locals. We're talking about plants that probably are on some kind of irrigation or sprinkler system that have a lot of hydration in them.
Let's stop right there because a few months ago, UC Berkeley was part of a simulation that tested the vegetation during a wildfire. Michael Gallner is one of the researchers.
Unfortunately, the conditions are so extreme that the fire, after a minute or two, will dry out those plants, and then you get right at the same scenario. So any benefit is washed away before the fire would die down.
His team also published a study that found that a 5-foot barrier can reduce the loss of a home by an added 17%.
How'd you come up to that number?
But not every researcher agrees with the so-called benefits of that 5-foot parameter. Travis Longcore of UCLA has studied the aftermath of larger Southern California fires.
There is not currently in the literature strong evidence of post-fire studies that show complete removal of plants within 5 feet is necessary or beneficial.
But hey, let's go along with it. There are plenty of other things that we could do to make sure that these disasters don't happen. You know, first two things would be going after PG&E and SoCal Edison to underground all the lines, since that's how a lot of these fires get started. You could make sure that fire departments are fully funded and have the equipment that they need. That's a big failure in Los Angeles. And make sure they have the right leadership. And you could really do what you can to clear out the dry brush that starts spreading like crazy. But I don't know if this is the silver bullet.
Longcore believes this kind of removal has an adverse environmental impact. Wildfires in these hills aren't unheard of. The last major fire in the Berkeley Hills was in 1991, which actually started in the Oakland Hills and quickly spread.
And wasn't that one also a holdover fire? Yeah, we never heard of that in L.A.
Before that, 640 homes were destroyed in 1923.
The state is eventually going to adopt something very similar. You have already done it. Don't you think you could have waited until the state imposed their mandate?
Why?
Well, it's Berkeley. Berkeley's got to be out front for everything.
Why wait for the state that is already taking a long time when we are at risk while we wait? Second point is home insurers are canceling insurance of many of my constituents in this area every month.
That's not going to change. That may now accelerate.
And the longer we wait, the more people lose their insurance.
There is no current legislation, there is no current law that says if you take any steps to mitigate fire risk that the insurers have to insure you. Because they don't need to do that. Because they've got a stooge in the office.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Paid for.
That's true of Patrice Ignelzi and Bruce Smith. They lost their insurance coverage, but eventually found another company at a higher cost. Jane Turgeon is now covered through the California Fair Plan.
Oh, no.
Jane Turgeon is now covered through the California Fair Plan, which is very expensive.
And requires really that everybody has to do it. If not everyone does it, then it's really not going to help.
It also still might not help.
She and others now belong to a neighborhood group working with firefighters called Firewise. Those who oppose the ordinance are threatening to recall their council member and fight to delay it from being enforced.
I feel like of all the things that you can threaten to use CEQA for, you could definitely threaten to use CEQA if Berkeley is forcing people to cut down their trees.
And how will they enforce this ordinance? Well, beginning in June or July, the fire department will begin inspecting homes. And yes, fines could eventually be handed out, but there is a grace period for those homeowners who are working towards complying with the law. And I think the city wants to say, you know, if you're progressing nicely, okay. You know, kind of take your time, do it, you know, at your leisure, at your pace, but do it.
Yeah, get started.
Right.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you, Leanne.
Sure.
So that's what Berkely is doing, forcing residents in the hills to eliminate anything living within 5 feet of their home because that's supposed to prevent the spread of wildfires. Maybe. Science isn't really clear on it, but sure. Why not try anything? Let's throw whatever we can at the wall and see what sticks. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email us, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Alan Napa writes in on the 5-foot law. This law began with the insurance industry. It's called Zone Zero, 5 feet from the structure, like the gutter line. Many fire departments are mandating it. Many Napa neighbors have lost insurance and are told by CAL FIRE they have to enforce it. No grass, mulch, wood, or plastic ground cover. It's being insisted on by the FAIR plan. And Dan writes in and says, Randy, don't forget going back to making arson a crime. Homeless people are setting fires around town every single day and nothing is done about it. That is true. Let's go ahead and open up the phones right now. 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. To help prevent the spread of potential wildfires, Berkely is mandating and forcing their residents to eliminate anything living within 5 feet of their homes. That could be plants, that could be mulch, that could be trees, that could be fences. Nothing. You've got to have a 5-foot zone around your home. Do you think this is a good idea? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with Margaret in Benicia. Margaret, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So, I was wondering if these groups that are advocating for cutting down trees and greenery all over the state realize that contributes to global warming. And what do the lefties think about that?
Telling you, I don't know which side the Sierra Club is going to end up on this one. But yes, now we've gone to, in order to protect ourselves from fires, we need to cut down all the trees.
It's sad is what it actually is.
There's definitely that.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Randy.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Joseph in Hawthorne. Joseph, hello.
Hi. Why don't the fire department go out there and enforce the government cutting back shrubs? I mean, that's where the big problem happened. If you look within a certain, Edison only owns so much ground underneath the power lines, but the adjacent ground a lot of times is government owned, and that's the stuff that caused the problem.
That's where we're seeing a lot of this dry brush that has overgrown and has been ignored for decades. You're totally right about that. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Do you think what Berkely is doing is a good idea? 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. We'll get to your calls in just a second, but let me remind you that a week from Friday is our big live event. We're heading back to Gladstone's in Long Beach, Friday, February 6th from noon to 3. We're going for a very special reason, because Gladstone's is a blast. Enjoy great food, good vibes, and a fun afternoon by the water. John Segmeister runs quite a great shop over there. And we'll have special guests like Susan Shelley from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association. She'll tell you more about your taxpayer rights and protecting Prop 13. The courts have made it easier to raise your taxes. Specifically, there's a thing that they allow now called a citizens initiative, which means if a union puts a tax hike on the ballot instead of a politician, it can pass by a simple majority instead of 2/3. And that is causing taxes to go up in a whole bunch of different places. So if you want to change that, you need to come by and sign the petition to save Prop 13. The deadline is coming fast. Susan needs all of those signatures by February 17th. So if you already filled out that petition, get your friends to do it. Get your family to do it. Get your neighbors to do it. Get 10 people to do it. Have them all go to saveprop13.com. Come hang out with us, grab a bite, and be part of the broadcast, The John Phillips Show, Friday the 6th from noon to 3. We're going to the phones right now, 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. In an effort to prevent the spread of wildfires, Berkely is forcing their residents with a new ordinance that starts being enforced this summer to eliminate anything living within 5 feet of their homes. Any plants, any trees, including any fencing, any mulch, nothing. Do you think this is a good idea? 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Let's start with Doug in San Francisco. Doug, hello.
Hi, Randy. This is Doug.
Howdy.
Are you there? Hi, Randy. So, CAL FIRE a couple of years ago instituted Zone 0 that you can't have anything combustible within, I forget what, probably at the 5 feet of your house. And I have a property up in the mountains, so that's almost impossible. You got fences, you got trees all over. I doubt there's anything that is, that was based on. Building code does a whole lot more for fire prevention than fire code does, but you can't put anything underneath your deck. I got a notice from them, take it out. Some jurisdictions will allow you to put a fire-resistant tarp, but you can't have your firewood within, it's either 25 or 40 feet of your house, which I'm on a slope. There's nowhere to put it. So you have to put it in a fire, it's basically a metal shed, or you can't have it next to your house. I'm doing the tarp thing. That does help a little bit, but how can you enforce that up in the mountains? It's next to impossible.
I mean, even if you kill the grass that's around your house, every time it rains, it's going to grow back.
So I think that there is been testing on this. Every single fire that you see that's a wildfire, they'll say, "Oh yeah, those embers, they'll go for miles." And I think that's going to go right over top of that 5-foot zone, land on your house, and that's where you really have the problem is when you have those trees that drop, and now the accumulation on the house, and you get the fire. But in those fires, there's nothing stopping them.
I think you make some good points. Thanks so much for the call, Doug. Appreciate it. Let's go to Bill in Santa Rosa. Bill, hello.
Hello. How you doing today?
Doing great.
All right. About this Berkely thing with them telling people how close they can get vegetation to their house, I can understand the point where if somebody's property is causing an excessive fire danger that they may want to give them a fine or something. But to institute policy like that, I think it's a bunch of garbage. I think that I'm hoping there's a lot of people from Berkely listening today, because my question to all of them is, how much longer are you going to keep putting up with things like this and taking it in the seat because they're instituting these ridiculous policies? And the reason it keeps happening is because you keep electing the same people into office and allowing them to be in office to do this to you. And that's my question, is how much longer are people going to put up with this?
Well, there's already some locals that are talking about recalling some of the members of the city council up there that put this policy into, because the science is debated on whether this will actually help. It sure seems incredibly punitive, and there are a lot of other things that we could be doing that might be more effective, but sometimes politicians feel like they need to just do something so it looks like they're addressing the problem, whether it's actually effective or not. So that maybe if enough people get irritated by this because they're getting fined left and right and they have to chop down their trees and completely change their landscaping all for nothing because it won't really help, there might be a recall afoot.
Well, exactly. And I don't think that they even make even these minor token changes unless there's some kind of a fee schedule or some type of a cost attached to it that's going to be a big windfall for the city right up front. And that, again, is something that needs to be addressed. And I don't really see where the officials in Berkely turning into the world's largest HOA are going to solve any problems for anybody. I think that there's bigger problems that need to be addressed in the short term.
I'll tell you, nothing Berkely wants more is to be the world's biggest HOA. Thanks so much for the call, Bill. Appreciate it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Let's go to Dave in San Jose. Dave, hello.
Hi. I really love your show.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that Randy's off today, and happy birthday to him, as well as what's going on in this world that we're in. I really appreciate what you guys are doing politically and everything. I lived up in Northern California, up in Trinity, for many years, and my dad was in the Forest Service. He was a fire manager officer up there, and in the years that he fought fire, Well, they did it differently. And he also fought fire down in Los Angeles, and he was also a hot shot down there. So when he come up to Trinity County, he saw a different type of fire suppression that you had to do versus what's down there in the Santa Ana winds. Okay, so we had to, as growing up, being with the Forest Service and everything, everybody had to do their part and clean up the areas around their houses just because of that reason. But it also, what stood more than that was, one, you also had a Forest Service at that time that could be able to do their jobs, be able to clean up the land. After they did a clear cut, they'd go back in, do some fire suppression, do all the fuels and stuff that they had to do for the October so that they could burn it and then clean up all the areas. Well, they're not doing that anymore. So with what you got going on now is a total different thing. And that all constituted back when Bill Clinton got into office. He changed the Forest Service. He wanted to get the more environmentalists and their inputs in it, and that's what's caused now where we're at right now.
Well, that's a really, really good point, Dave. And there's a lot of federally owned land in this state that going back to then just has not been, we haven't done the controlled burns. We haven't done the brush clearance because we all of a sudden decided that this thing that going back to tribal lands have been doing for generations, we shouldn't do anymore. And that's definitely contributed to how these things can spread so quickly in these forests, especially in Northern California, where they can be started by lightning. In Southern California, they get started by incompetence. Let's go to Matthew in Concord. Matthew, hello.
Hey, Randy.
Howdy.
Bless the firemen for what they do, but it's literally impossible to stop anything with 100-mile-an-hour wind flaming it. House firemen show up, put your house out. There's not 100-mile-an-hour winds fanning that house. But the fire does move fast because of all of our, stuff that burns. But Oakland Hills, when I was here, the wind was 65 miles an hour, just fanning those flames everywhere. The Palisades fires, that was all valley wind and everything else like that. Berkeley is beautiful. You're not going to get rid of those redwoods and trees up there. People move there because the hill is solid. The trees are beautiful. The houses are so independently structured in, brick and stone and everything. There's some medieval looking houses up there and the trees just make it look gorgeous up there. But 100-mile-an-hour wind is going to blow embers faster, stronger than anybody can even know. The Berkely may as well, buy a couple of helicopters that can drop water faster instead of waiting hours for water dumping helicopters to show up. Have it done immediately. You could fly them right out of the Berkeley Marina. But just you're battling nature with wind, and the wind, the fire people have to go 5 miles down the road and try and save those houses down there because they know the math, they know the science that we can't stop it up there. We have to go further down and try and stop it further down. It's the wind. This ordinance sounds pretty stupid, and we're going to have people climbing trees again that they want to cut down. And remember that 10, 15 years ago up by the stadium, people were living in the trees.
It's going to be a throwback. The tree huggers are coming back in 2026. Thanks so much for the call, Matthew, out there in Concord. Appreciate it. Let's go to Mark in Sonoma. Mark, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great.
Hey, fantastic. So I think what a lot of people are missing with the 5-foot rule is that a lot of these fires that blew into these areas, like your last caller said, when you have 100-mile-an-hour winds, fires are going to create their own weather systems. But what that 5-foot barrier does, and I deal with this on a daily basis with a lot of my clients, so I'm in the landscape business, is that it keeps the fire and the radiant heat from getting up under the eaves of these old houses, and the fire gets up into the vents. And that's when it becomes a problem. So that's why they're having them clear the space, because a lot of these older houses all have vents, and that fire just goes rolling right up into there, and that just adds to the problem. So it's a little bit sketchy, how some of them are doing it, but a lot of my clients are on board with it because they don't want their insurances to go out through the roof. And what they're doing is they're putting in gravel. So they're putting in gravel into and some of them, like up in my area, it's not just 5 feet, it's 10 feet, it's 15 feet. It just depends on where you're at. So there's a big variable there, but that's really one of the reasons why they do that 5-foot rule, is so that the fire doesn't get up into the eaves of these houses. And that's why they're changing the construction on the houses. That's why you see houses that are made of metal, rock, stone, because the fire, you have a much higher rate of success of saving your house. So that's kind of my take on that.
Oh, I think you're totally right. And we've got to rethink the way that, we're building, especially in the hills where, you don't have the opportunity for something to sneak into the attic like a eave and then just torch everything that's in there, because that's how a lot of the homes in the Palisades and a lot of these big fires burn so quickly, is that little ember went right into the attic and then it was done.
It was done. It was just cooked. And a lot of my clients now are putting in fire suppression systems on the roof. So they're putting in sprinklers on the roofs of the houses that shoot out so far. So people are doing a lot of stuff to try to prevent, and I'm in, my town is 100% a fire zone. Doesn't matter where you're at. If your insurance company, you're in a fire zone. So, it's a tough deal, man. I feel for these people that can't afford to do that, but it's unfortunate.
Really appreciate the call, Mark. Thanks so much for calling in. I love Sonoma. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Let's go to Angela in Emeryville. Angela, hello.
Hi, John. Love your show.
Thank you.
I was listening to the last callers. Absolutely. I lived through the fire in the Oakland Hills. It didn't matter how far you were away. It was coming your way as fast as those winds were going. I personally think it's just another way of getting the land grab. They're going to make these people, force them to move decks. And these are new houses. These aren't old houses. These houses have been 20 years old. Just another way of a land grab, kill their insurance, make sure they can't afford to redo it, and it's a land grab.
Well, I think that's one of my biggest fears, is what you just said, is that any kind of policy like this is just giving the insurance companies even more excuses to drop you. And if you cannot afford insurance on your home, some people, like you said, they will just move.
Oh, yes. I know people have $2 to $3 million homes in the Oakland Hills that are freshly built, and they have beautiful decking and hot tub areas and decks. I mean, really, they can't afford to go back and remove all of that to put it 5-10 feet away. And the fire was so fierce that day, it didn't matter where you were. I mean, I was 10 miles away, and I had a 5-foot amber lamp on my car. That purposely would have burned something. But, we all had to leave and evacuate, but it didn't really matter how preventive you were. But it's a land grab for sure. This is just another Newsom land grab to get you out of your home.
Well, there you go. Thanks so much for the call, Angela. Appreciate it. Let's go to Bob in Campbell. Bob, hello.
Hi, Randy. Hey, enjoy your show. I like all the humor you guys put in, but this is a serious subject, so I'll get really to the point. I just wanted to kind of dovetail that couple callers back where he was saying put a fireproof perimeter around your house. Now, I'm a general contractor down here in the South Bay. I just finished a job up in the Mid-Peninsula, upper Mid-Peninsula. There was a client's home that lived up against a wildland area. And so they had me change out all of their E-vents and all their crawl space vents and all the vents for gable vents, all that kind of stuff, with fireproof vents. And I'm not going to mention the name of the company because I don't want you to think I'm trying to advertise, but customers can just go online, go to Google and just say, Google fireproof E-vents and crawl space vents, and they'll see everything you need to know. But the way these things work, they look like a conventional vent, but it's made with what's called intumescent material. And what it does is once it reaches a certain temperature, when you get a wildfire going, it melts and forms a solid metal barrier that doesn't let any embers into the eave or the crawl space. Also, it's got a special mesh on the front that prevents any big embers from getting in. And then the intumescent aspect actually just melts and forms a solid metal wall that doesn't let anything in. So, granted, you got to replace the vent screens after your fire, but at least that's a small price to pay for saving your house. So I thought I'd just throw that out there, couple that along with the guy that was saying, have a fireproof barrier. You can fireproof your eave vents and your crawl space and your gable vents.
And how great would it be if the state was incentivizing that, whether it's with tax credits or having the insurance companies pay for something like that? And then we know that these homes are a lot sturdier. That seems a lot more simple than cutting down all the trees and plants within 5 feet of your house.
Well, amen to that, brother. In fact, how these people got the idea was the fire marshal of the local community held a little tea and meet and greet for all the neighbors, and he said, "This is what I recommend you people do." So this came straight from the fire marshal, and so they contacted me, and I'd never even heard of this stuff. I thought this stuff is pretty cool. It's sweet, and it's an amazing technology. Stuff's not cheap, but it's not prohibitively expensive either, especially when you compare it to replacing your house, number one. But number two, they actually, the insurance company gave them a break when they put that stuff in there.
I love that. That's exactly how the insurance company should be operating, is that if you have something that makes your home a lot harder to burn down, it's time to lower the rates. Bob, thanks so much for the call. We're late for a break. Appreciate it. Real quick here, let's go to Bob in Orange County. Bob, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great.
Been doing the fire business for about 34 years and fought most of the fires up and down this state. Malibu a couple of times, Paradise twice, Cedar, Santiago, Laguna. So let me just kind of explain real briefly. They're talking about 5-foot brush clearance. 100-foot brush clearance is not going to help. We start feeling the intense heat about a quarter mile away. Now let's say you got 300-foot flame lengths in pine trees, you got propane tanks exploding, and now here's how we do it. Fire approaches us, and we're protecting a structured fire. Fire gets too hot for us. We've already softened up the building, which means...
Gosh, it sounds like you're going through an inferno. We're out of time, Bob. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. 2 more hours to go on The John Phillips Show.